Clara was 36 years old when Ba died, and she was not ready. She had known it was coming. Ba had been telling her, in the quiet way Ba told her most important things, across the final 2 years of her life. Not with speeches or announcements, with urgency in the lessons, with the particular focus of a person who has begun to understand that what she is carrying needs to be handed off before the carrying ends. Clara had been listening to Ba's voice her entire life. She had been learning the language since she was 6 years old, sitting at a fence post in the early mornings on the edge of her family's homestead in the New Mexico territory, learning words for wind and water and the specific names of stars that Europeans had never bothered to name. She had learned the songs tied to the turning of seasons. She had learned the stories that held Apache history, the way the bone holds the blood, not decorating it, but carrying it. By the time Ba died in 1909, Clara had been the keeper of all of it for 30 years. But this story is not actually about what Clara carried. It is about why Ba chose her to carry it in the first place. And the answer to that question, when it finally came, said something that went far beyond language, far beyond history, far beyond any tradition or responsibility. It said something about loyalty, so plain and so specific and so quietly devastating that every person who has ever heard this story has had to sit with it for a while before they could move on. The fence was a post and wire boundary between two pieces of New Mexico homestead land in 1879. On one side was the property where Clara's family had been settled for 4 years, working a small cattle operation and a kitchen garden in the high desert. On the other side was the land adjacent to the area where Ba's family had moved in the years following the forced changes to Apache territory, living in a way that was neither fully the old life nor yet comfortable in the new one. Ba was not young when this began. She had already lived a full life by the standards of that era. She had seen the old world, and she was watching it narrow, season by season, under the pressure of settlement and government policy, and the slow, systematic destruction of everything that made the Apache language a living thing, rather than a collection of sounds. She understood, with the clarity of someone who had been watching this happen for years, that the language was going to die. Not completely, and not immediately, but the conditions that had kept it alive, the unbroken community of speakers, the daily use in ceremony and trade and storytelling and prayer, those conditions were being dismantled, one by one. The songs that required a singer to know 50 words with no English equivalent were already being sung less frequently. The stories that only made full sense in Apache, that lost something irreplaceable in any translation, were being told to smaller and smaller audiences of people who could follow them. She had Apache students she could have chosen, grandchildren, members of her own community who would have learned and remembered. She did not choose them for this particular work. She chose Clara, and for 30 years, she did not explain why. Clara herself wondered. She wondered as a child, when she knew only that the woman at the fence was teaching her things her parents and her teachers and her neighbors had never heard of and could not have explained. She wondered as a young woman when she began to understand the significance of what she was being given and felt both the weight of it and the strangeness of being the one chosen to carry it. She wondered as an adult, as the lessons became more urgent and more complete, as Usenba seemed determined to give her everything, not just the surface of the language, but the architecture beneath it. She never asked directly. For many years, she did not feel it was her question to ask. In the way that Usenba had taught her to understand things, some knowledge arrived when it was ready, and asking did not speed it up. But near the end, when Usenba's health had turned and the urgency in the lessons had become something else, something more like the focused and deliberate action of a person settling their affairs, Clara asked. She asked simply and directly, the way Usenba had always preferred to be spoken to. She said she wanted to understand. After 30 years of being taught, she wanted to know why it was her. Usenba was quiet for a moment. She looked at Clara the way she had always looked at her, with the particular attention of someone who has spent a long time watching a person and knows them fully. Then she said, "I chose you because you were the only one who always came back." Clara did not speak for a while. She thought about the fence, about the first morning at 6 years old, when she had wandered out in the early light and sat down in the grass near the post, and Usenba had appeared on the other side. She thought about every morning after that, through childhood and through the years her family had tried to redirect her attention toward more conventional pursuits. Through the winter her mother was ill, and the spring her father added 40 head and needed all available hands for the work. Through the years when it would have been easier and more socially acceptable to let the connection at the fence quietly lapse. She had always come back. Not because she fully understood what she was being given. Not because she had made a formal commitment. Not because anyone was watching or keeping account. Because the morning felt wrong without it. Because something had been started at that fence that she did not want to leave unfinished. Because Usenba was there, and what happened at the fence was worth returning to. And that was reason enough. That was the whole selection criterion. Not bloodline. Usenba had family who carried Apache blood, and could have received this inheritance by every conventional measure of who deserved it. Not aptitude. Clara was not a gifted linguist. She worked hard at the language, and she was adequate and dedicated, but she was not someone for whom it came easily. Not age, or gender, or social standing, or any of the factors that might have seemed relevant to a decision of this magnitude. The only thing Usenba had looked for, the only thing she had found in Clara that she could not find anywhere else, was this. When you went away, you came back. That quality, that specific and unglamorous faithfulness, was what Usenba had determined the knowledge required in its keeper. Because knowledge this fragile and this important does not need a brilliant carrier. It needs a loyal one. It needs someone who will return to it on the mornings when returning is inconvenient, who will carry it through the seasons when carrying it is not rewarded, who will bring it forward into a world that may not want it, simply because it is worth bringing forward. Clara spent the rest of her long life honoring that choice. She worked with researchers and linguists who came to the territory in the decades after Usenba's death, sharing everything she had been given with the same patient dedication she had brought to the fence every morning for 30 years. She recorded songs. She preserved stories. She wrote down the names of places in the language that had named them before any settler arrived. The specific and irreplaceable Apache words for the mountains and the rivers and the desert formations that English had only ever given clumsy approximations. She was asked many times by the researchers who worked with her how she had come to hold all of this. She always told the story completely. She never shortened the part about the fence, or the 30 years, or the question she finally asked near the end. Because she understood that the choosing was part of the knowledge, that the reason Usanba had selected her was itself something worth preserving, worth passing forward, worth sitting with in the quiet and turning over until its full weight becomes apparent. Not the most gifted, not the most obvious, not the most entitled or the most prepared. The one who always came back. That quality does not make the news. It does not earn recognition in the moment it is being practiced. It looks, from the outside, like simple habit, simple reliability. The unremarkable daily action of a person who shows up again and again, without ceremony or announcement, or expectation of reward. But Usanba had watched it for years, and she had understood exactly what it was. It was the rarest thing. It was the thing she could trust with everything she had left to give. The fence between those two pieces of New Mexico land is long gone. The homestead is gone. The territory itself is changed almost beyond recognition from what it was in 1879. But the language lives. Because a 6-year-old girl sat down at a fence post one morning and came back the next morning, and the morning after that, for 30 years, for no reason except that it was worth coming back to. And because an old woman on the other side of the fence was watching and knew exactly what that meant.